Morning. Good morning. Let's see. The muttered feeling and sounding about as powerless as he actually was. Helga. I was carried back to his cell. And Helga was taken down another path. There was apparently no delay for her. They chained her to some wall, and Faye Toon got right to work for cracking that whip. Helga's terrible screams echoed through the halls. They were as horrifying as anything Arlen had uttered when he was the Ballbuster. Is that an arm? I don't know. There's probably no way to, it's one of those things that you don't take seriously unless you're in the machine, I guess. Like, oh, this machine cracks your balls, huh? Yeah, that's very funny, though. Not when you're inside the machine, it's not very funny. It's like when you see a horror movie, you see someone die horrifically, you think that's cool. You wouldn't think it was cool if you were in that person's shoes, you know? And plenty of people have been in real life. Psycho killers are a real thing, you know? Let's see. One felt terrible not being able to help Helga. He could only stand there at the bars of his cell. The cell was modern. The cell's barred walls. Walls were made of modern and solid construction. One was definitely a lot stronger than an ordinary man. But he couldn't bend the bars. Break through those bars. Bars like some literal superhuman. Like someone with superhuman strength. And even if he could, there were 3 guards with SMGs right outside. It would have filled him with lead before he could even take a step out of the cell. Helga screams. Were there screams in the background? Screams, moan. Screams, moans. I do wonder if some people who write this kind of stuff are sadistic, or at least think this stuff is sexy. I'm working on a story involving a massacre in the other novel I'm working on, and it's not fun at all to write. It's very terrible. I mean, I would prefer just to write about a straight-up battle, but I also have to write about civilians getting killed, and that's just, well, you know, it's not very fun. Don't know if I'd want to be a writer if I found that stuff fun to write. Let's see, screams made Arlen realize that it was just him and her down in this basement of this security secret police HQ. How could it be so barren? Had they just purged the last prisoners before he and Helga got down here? Surely they had plenty of prisoners down here since the occupation began. Since they took over this house and made it to a house of horrors. I almost said chamber of horrors, but that doesn't fit because it's more than the whole basement. The Gestapo did more terrible stuff. Did terrible stuff not just in the basements of their HQ on Prince Albertstrasse in Berlin. Well, you know, the Nazis had no shortage of places to commit terrible atrocities. And I found out the Italians had concentration camps too. Yeah. I always looked at the Italians as like the Nazis, but less evil, at least in World War II. And in a fictional setting, you'd probably have a lot more ambiguity, you know? Like the Italians were on our side in the First War, and then they turned on us because we didn't let them gobble up Czechoslovakia, which they considered their rightful territory, because there were a lot of Italians living in Yugoslavia at the time of World War II. I don't know if that's the case today. I don't think Italy lost any territory besides its African colonies, like Libya and whatever they called Ethiopia after they conquered it. But besides that, there wasn't much. They certainly didn't end up like Germany had like all Prussia given to Poland, but you know, Germany, yeah. It was at least Poland should have been able to gobble up half the country, in my view, after all the suffering the Germans inflicted on them. Screw the Germans. Should have turned them into a country smaller than Belgium. Even that. Maybe just divide it up, make it disappear like they made so many other countries disappear for a time. Anyway. Alan had a brief vision of himself somehow escaping his cell. Should know that they're alone earlier. Are we alone in the universe? Are you alone in this torture chamber? Being the last person to die. And himself somehow escaping his cell and charging through the area. Through the cell blocks. Through the adjacent cell blocks to rescue prisoners and make something of a squad to back him up. If anyone was fit for such a thing. Was Ireland never a prisoner? Ireland never a prisoner. I try to avoid having the heroes become prisoners of the bad guys because it's my instinct to do the realistic thing, and realistically a villain would just kill the heroes on the spot. There wouldn't be any talk. A clever writer could probably come up with a good reason why the heroes wouldn't be killed on the spot. Like they let the heroes escape so they can lead them somewhere, or you know, or maybe they're hoping to have the heroes join them somehow. I guess that's the more realistic, but maybe lazier. That's realistic, but slightly lazier, I think. You gotta show your villains as smart people sometimes. You know, people like smart villains in stories, because it makes it more satisfying when they're defeated. Going in the squad to back them up. He imagined opening cells, big wooden or metal doors, and only finding dead, rotting bodies or skeletons lying around. I don't know. I remember that from Wolfenstein 3D. Were the Nazis really that lazy that they would just leave rotting corpses in jails, in prison cells and stuff? I don't know. They cremated the people they killed in the camps, but I remember at the end of World War II, they found lots of dead people were lying around the camps, and all that was recorded, and it was like, I'm not sure if that was because they abandoned the camps abruptly, and they didn't have time to cremate the people. They probably were more concerned about escaping than worrying about any sanitation things. Let's see. The basement. The dungeon. It didn't smell like rotting bodies. There was definitely the smell of death, blood, and suffering. and blood. I'll put blood last because that's like the visceral. Blood is something that's very tangible, I think, next to smell of death or suffering. What death smells like probably varies a little bit. They say rotting meat, rotting bodies, that smells like... You never forget that smell. I'm not sure where I read that, if that was from a show or not, but I saw it recently. It's possible. They say it's a smell you don't forget. Anyway, let's see, it was definitely the smell of death, rotting, and death, suffering, and blood. This was a cursed place. There was Ireland, people thought Ireland, when they saw him unmasked, had a great sense of smell. His sense of smell was actually no better than most people, and maybe a little worse actually. Sometimes Ireland thought he was completely nose blind to all but the most egregious smells. Erogenous, androgynous, egregious, erogenous. Gotta get back to that nice Lord of the Rings book later today. To read it, not to write it. Could you imagine getting the job of writing the sequel to Lord of the Rings? There are some people who are probably so arrogant that they think, yeah, that'd be easy to do. But not me. There's just too much stuff. It would be interesting to write how you get from the time of the Lord of the Rings to our time, like a continuous history. I don't know. That would require a lot of fictional stuff, I think. There's just too much stuff to keep track of. You know, all the fictional terms, places, ideas. For me to even have a shot at that, it'd have to be say in one of those regions they didn't talk about, like the eastern regions, where the Easterlings came from, or something like that. Somewhere that they didn't really explore in Lord of the Rings. And there was a hell of a lot of exploring. Not so much action so far, at least in the parts I've read. I would like to see more action instead of hearing people talk about it. I mean, the Lord of the Rings films are very famous for their epic battles. I'd like to see some more of that in the written form. Clearly nose blind to all but the most egregious smells. Frustrated Ireland when he was a little boy. Like, when he was little, he was always afraid that the house was going to burn down. And sometimes he would catch a faint whiff of something, like fire, burning wood, or in the air. And he would wonder, try to find the source, but his nose just wouldn't take him to the origin. It was like the smell had just come from nothing. Probably gotta check and see. I'm sure there's another part of the story where I said Ireland had a great sense of smell, like a damn dog, a hund. I decided to just use the name dog for hund. Because I have a character named Dog, and I kind of would like to keep his name, her name, that way. Hey, fellows, Ireland said to the guards. Two guards. The two came up to Ireland in surprisingly friendly manner. Poses relaxed, relaxed faces with warm smiles to them. It was like they were seeing some old buddy for the first time in a long way. In a long time. A while. Yes. Another guy there. Am I and the girl only prisoners here? I asked. Yeah, they evacuated everyone else hours ago. One guard replied. The same guard replied. A few were executed. They refused. Were too risky. Transport. Resistance members? Alan asked. The guards both shrugged. Don't know. Might have just been people pulled off the street. Yeah, I suppose. Nobody important, clearly. Or that big fight out at the docks wouldn't have happened. Guard. One guard said. I see. Alan muttered. Helga screamed particularly loudly in the background. Taking another crack of the whip. Boy, it was just across her back. Hopefully it was just across her back. I kept imagining her taking whips to the front into more vulnerable areas. Two nasty whips. As I lit out a lesser screen next. Thanks to she probably didn't used up all the air in her lungs on the earlier scream. Need a moment to recover. A moment that Faye Toon wasn't going to give her. You'd like to kill her. Kill the guy, right? Like to kill our boss, right? One guard asked Ireland. Evidently, a lot of anger crossed Ireland's face. Yeah. Like sometimes you see someone that's like, they're angry, but they almost look like they got too much anger on their face, you know? Maybe, Ireland replied. Maybe I'd take him alive so he could face justice for what he's done. Guard muttered. What's going on in the city? Arlen asked. Is there some new big attack going on? Arlen wasn't asked about it. Got it by Lyle Rin before he left. Which seemed odd to him. I'll imagine if he captured a mate resistance figure and then some new attack started in the town, he would have said something about it. He would have asked about it. Arlen was so very glad that he was no evildoer, like Waggle, like General Rin. It would be a terrible thing, in his view, to be responsible for the suffering of innocent people, or the torture of people just trying to liberate their country. Some superhuman has showed up. One guy said immediately. The other guy gave him a brief look that said, "Are you sure you should be saying that?" But he didn't actually say such a thing. Dominique Virchington, Arlen asked, almost saying her maiden name of Vert by accident. Sometimes it was a little hard for Arlen to believe that he was married to her. Like it was impossible for a mortal to marry such a divine being. I've never heard of a human marrying a god in any story. Mythological. Modern fiction, yeah, I think so. Some. It's still kind of rare. It's almost like there's a residual feeling that such things would be blasphemous. Like, it's blasphemous to have a mortal marry a goddess. Even though most people don't believe in goddesses these days. They're mostly monotheistic. Polytheism is still around, though. I mean, there'll always be people who believe in many gods, I think. As long as there's monotheistic people, why wouldn't there be polytheistic people? You wish. One guard jeered. It is Wilhelmina Goria, the blood conversion of Dominique. She is attacking the city to help the resistance? Alan asked. Apparently so. Though I imagine your resistance comrades would have preferred for her to come here a little sooner. The guy replied, "I need to shave my beard. It's getting close to summer now, so beard season is over." Oh, that's just an illusion. Let's see. I was just looking at my figurine that I made myself. Sometimes I make figurines of my characters. That might be a good idea for some writers, folks, to make replications of your characters, kind of like a creativity totem or something, God replied. The conversation might have continued if not for a sudden flux of furious gunfire upstairs about the courtyard of the mansion. Clearly, someone was attacked. Clearly, the place was being attacked in force. I have no idea if he was being liberated or if this was just some group deciding to take the secret police HQ by force. Secret Police HQ. The two guards looked very uneasy, gazing up at the ceiling. I would imagine they hoped that this was just some firefight that broke out in proximity to the Secret Police HQ. An attack that had nothing to do. But no, it was an attack on their HQ, requiring them to move their asses to deal with it. Let's go. One guard said the other to Jade, and they both headed off, leaving Ireland alone. The attack didn't stop Helga's whipping session. She was still crying out in pain as the fight topside. Topside, the miniature courtyard. Police HQ. Moments before. About a minute before things went loud. Okay. Sign off here, folks. Have a nice day.